Hello, dear Polymer Clay enthusiasts. I'm Mihaela from Learn Polymer Clay, and I'm back with more inspiration for your work with Polymer Clay. In today's tutorial, I'm going to use a variation of the Natasha bead technique, and I'll explain this technique a little bit later. And I'm going to use colors of Polymer Clay that I don't normally use in my work, but I should because I liked the end result. I'm talking about neon colors and glitter polymer clay. I hope you liked the tutorial, so let's dive into the tutorial. I'm working with Ornate neon pink and Ornate neon blue. I've also used Fimo Professional glitter violet, and I've also mixed some Fimo Professional pink with white to have a lighter shade of pink, and some Fimo Professional violet that I mixed it with some white polymer clay to have a lighter shade of violet as well. And they are all properly conditioned, and I've also conditioned some black polymer clay that I passed through a very thin setting of my pasta machine. I think I'm using number 5 of my Atlas pasta machine, and I'm going to use this very thin sheet of polymer clay that I'm stretching all the time to make sure that my polymer clay log fits, and I am able to wrap it in this black polymer clay. And then I just remove the excess clay and press the ends together. I'm making sure that I don't have air trapped inside. I'm not very careful with joining the lines because I'm not making a cane. I'm going to make such logs, and then I'm going to put them together into a bundle, and then I'm going to twist the bundle and then cut in the middle. So this is not a precise design. You don't have to neatly join the ends of the polymer clay wrap together like you would do for a cane. I'm trimming off the excess clay from both ends, and I will do this. So it is very important to poke off any air trapped inside the wrapped polymer clay. And I'm playing a little bit with the size of the logs. I'm using a larger size for the neon blue because I want to have a larger blue design on the final piece. And in fact, I'm going to use 2 logs of neon blue to make sure that I have a blue symmetry on the finished piece. And for the other logs, I'm rolling them in different thicknesses. Some are larger, some are smaller. I'm using the same color for several logs. I'm making, I don't know, 3 logs from a color. And then you'll just have to put them into a bundle, and I did this randomly, of course. I pressed them together. I've removed the excess clay, and then you'll just have to twist the bundle, and the more you twist it, the more intricate the design will be. I'm not twisting it very much because I want to have a design with larger colored parts, especially for the blue, neon blue, because I want to be able to impress a flower pattern using a stamp. So I'm checking against my trial piece to make sure I have the necessary size to be able to cut out using an elephant silhouette. And then I'm just using a sharp rigid plate to cut in the middle. Normally you should make your beads wider, because it is very difficult to have a neat cut when you have a very thin piece. But I wanted to have a thin piece because I want to use the scrap clay for the back of the piece, so I couldn't make a piece with larger width, because I really needed to use the scrap clay, because this is the starter of our conversation, so I had to use the scrap clay as well. And because my cut was not a perfect one, and this happens, I didn't have a perfect design in the middle of the piece, but there are always solutions when you are working with polymer clay. So I decided to cut and paste like you would do on the computer. I decided to take some beads from other areas, cut them with the camper cutter, and put them in the middle of the piece, and thus I would have a beautiful design in the center of the piece. And as I said, I'm going to use scrap clay to make the back of the piece, and I'm cutting slices of the polymer clay that I removed to have beautiful ends for the bead. And I applied these slices on top of the scrap clay, and then I put it through the pasta machine 3 times, even 3. And then I decided I had the look I wanted for the back of the piece. So I applied let's say the Natasha bead on top, and then I applied the cutout pieces, and I pressed everything together. And then I used my acrylic roller to roll everything together. And the acrylic roller is very important for this technique, because after cutting out in the middle of the piece, you will need your acrylic roller to, I don't know, to flatten the piece, and after pressing them together with your hands, if you manage to have a good cut, you'll have a very beautiful symmetrical design, and you won't have to cut and paste like I did. Your work will be easier. I had to work a little bit harder to have a nice result, but that's okay. And then, as I said, I used an elephant silhouette that you can download from learnpolymerclay.com, and that you can use in your work with polymer clay. And this is free for personal and commercial use. And then I used my craft knife to cut all around. I'm using the rigid blade in some areas to have a very neat cut. You will have to take care of the edges, to smooth off the edges. And to make sure that your piece looks as you want it to look. And then I'm using an alcohol ink pen and a stamp. And I'm just impressing a flower pattern on the ears. I'm pressing also a little bit into the polymer clay, so this does texture a little bit the polymer clay as well. And I decided to use an ink pen because I didn't want to use my StazOn black ink. I thought the black ink would be too much. I wanted a softer look for this pattern. So as always, do take the time to smooth off the edges and make sure that your piece looks nice on the edges and on the back as well. And then I decided to use some gold foil and the stencil to make a little gold flower in the center of the piece. I had to remove a lot of the scrap clay because I don't know, it got stuck on the piece. I had better results with this technique for other pieces, but anyway, this is a colorful and a beautiful design, and it's okay for me if there are little scrap gold foil pieces in some areas. It's okay. And then I decided to apply small bits of foil in other areas, especially because I had small bits in odd places. So I thought this would make the design look nice. And when you are happy with the look of the piece, you can put it in the oven for 40 minutes. And if you are mixing two different brands of polymer clay, like I did in this tutorial, it is recommended to bake them at the lowest temperature of the two brands. If you cannot use the same temperature for both, use the lowest. In my case, I've used the temperature I normally use to bake Fimo, because Ornate allows a temperature gap that makes it okay to bake it at the temperature recommended for Fimo polymer clay. And then I let the polymer clay cool down, and I finished the piece by applying diamond glaze. You can use resin for a resin like finish, for a glossy like finish, a beautiful finish on your pieces, or you can use sandpaper or micro mesh and polish and buff for your pieces, and you'll get a very beautiful glossy look as well. So I hope that you liked the tutorial. I hope that you were inspired, and I hope that you will use more your scrap clay in your work. Please share your impressions with me. Please press the like button if you like the tutorial, and stay tuned for more polymer clay inspiration. Thank you.